Good morning, everybody. It's been a pretty rainy week this week, but man alive, have we needed it. All right. Today we are going to take a look at the Gerber ASADA. I originally got this one. It's got to be 3 years ago or so, and I have put it to work, and I've carved. I can't even tell you how much wood I've actually whittled and carved away with this thing. So stick tuned, and we'll get right into it. Okay, guys, here it is. This is the Gerber ASADA. This is in D2 steel. Real quick, guys, we'll get you some basic measurements here. Starting clear at the tip. All right, we got 7.5 inches in overall length. Let's see, our cutting edge is 2.5 inches, and the width of the blade is just over an inch, about 1.25 inches. It's got a decently thick spine, but goes into a hollow grind. This is a very slicey knife, and I'm going to funny story about that. Most time, this is really one of the first knives made like this. Now, I just brought this out for a comparison here. This was the first one that I got that Gerber made that had a cleaver style blade, a flat iron, but I really didn't like it. And if you guys want a review of this flat iron, just let me know in the comments. I mean, I may end up doing one down the line anyway, but you know, I do got a lot to say about this one, but wasn't too impressed with this one. Then I happened to seen this one, and I'm like, well, that one looks like it was made a lot better, so I gave this one a shot. So, however, one thing I do want to say about the ASADA, and I got this at a local sporting goods store here, actually fairly close to where I live. This thing out of the package was actually scary sharp. I mean, my goodness, this thing was so sharp, and it holds an edge quite well. D2 steel. I accidentally cut myself probably 3 or 4 times in about 3 oddball years that I've owned this thing, and whew, it didn't take much for to split you wide open if you accidentally weren't paying attention. Because sometimes I'm kind of just whittling on some wood, and I get just thinking about a whole bunch of different stuff in general, and I've accidentally caught the edge of that knife. So it didn't take long for me to figure out how to properly handle this thing, because messing up was kind of painful. Okay, guys, let's get in here and do a little bit of woodworking with it. Now, I want to say too that this is a pretty nice knife to carry if you're doing a lot of like general cutting tasks, especially opening packages, cutting cardboard, and just your general all-around knife use. It's pretty good for that too, but it'll actually work wood pretty good. And this thing will allow you to get some pretty good fine shavings, which is great if you're making the feather sticks. Like I said, if you're new here, a lot of my blades, I really want them to be able to do some kind of wood processing for me, because I live kind of out in the middle of the sticks. You got the farm homestead kind of lifestyle going on, so it's important for me anyway that my knives that I carry can do a multitude of tasks, and wood processing is one of the real important ones for me. Let's get a little bit look at that. And then, like I said, you can get these little thin curly Q ones is super nice, because, like I said, if you got slightly damp wood, that stuff dries really fast when it's like this. If you have to, you pull it right off the feather stick you're making, put it in a pocket, that way, or somewhere out of where rain and moisture can't really get to it too bad, and maybe in the breeze, these little fine curly cues dry up really quick. And one of my favorite things about cleaver style blade is if you're doing anything where you're needing to make a draw cut, those tips on these are very pronounced for that. You don't have really, this has got a very, very moderate curve to the blade, but it's for the most part fairly straight. And this just a piece of cardboard. It's nice to have these to make nice draw cuts, especially if you're needing to, have a fairly decently straight cut. You could potentially even put something here for a straight edge. Then you can make your cut and get, as perfectly straight as a cut as you need. And that comes in handy if you're working with things like some bark or leather, and you're literally needing to make something that you need very precise cuts. And that's why I do like the cleaver style blade. Now this guy is in my EDC rotation. I usually pair this one up with my Osborne 940 from Benchmade. And my other rotation is the Rat 2 and my Spyderco Paramilitary 2. So as far as my single bladed folding pocket knives, that's kind of how I currently rotate out. So this guy still gets quite a bit of use. But since we're doing the cardboard, we'll break out this thicker, tougher piece here and cut on it too. All right, guys, let's get this worked on a little bit. Pretty decently clean cut. But I said that, this, like I said, this is pretty good for jobs like that. Cutting paper, cardboard, and cutting into packaging and stuff like that. That way that tip's made makes it really nice, especially if you're opening like a clamshell package. Of course, you got to be careful not to hit what's in the package, but that does actually work pretty good for those too. The way just that little tip pierces in there, and you can kind of come back here, use your finger for a break, so material shouldn't slide too much past where your finger's at, and just kind of pretty nice. I like it. I have us a new ugly stick here, guys, because they ain't gonna be too much longer. That the old one I'm using is just about done with, so I do got a new backup for that. She's pretty nasty. For the meantime, though, we still got a little bit of this guy left, so let's go ahead and get carving into that. Wood shavings in my coffee cup. Yeah, that's actually working just fine. Not too hateful. All right, let's get a little bit of cord cutting in there. Ain't gonna be too much longer. We'll have to get some more cordage out here for these tests. That slid through pretty decent. Let's take her down here real quick, and we will make some basic cuts on this. Yeah, that is slicing through pretty easy. Yeah, that wasn't much of a challenge at all right there. All right, let's see if this thing will shave for us. Here we go. Find a not so bald spot. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to have any issues with that. Like I said, this thing has a really good edge retention, but if D2 steel is done properly, that is definitely one of the benefits of D2. And in my final thoughts, I want to discuss more about that steel selection too. So let's go ahead and get ready for the closeout of this video, and I'm going to speak a little bit more of how useful it is, and some of the benefits and stuff of that D2. Now, with pocket knives, I think it's definitely a really good application. That steel is fantastic for pocket knives because typically we're not going to be using a folding pocket knife for high impact prying, or hopefully, you shouldn't really use it for prying. I understand if that's all you got in a certain situation, then you got to do what you got to do. But ideally, when these things are designed, they're for their function, they're not really considering you using it for a pry bar. But like I said, we've all been there. The D2 steel it's a fairly hard steel, and it will hold an edge quite well, especially if you're using it for your more moderate appropriate usage, and it will hold its edge quite well. Now, there's another steel that I've really come to love. It's DC 53 steel, and that's Effingro is usually the one that makes most of their knives out of that steel. Now, it is very similar to D2 steel, but it actually has more toughness, which allows it to be used in applications where there's a lot more shock. So the bigger knives I got made in that D2 steel handle chopping just fine, and battening. They handle it just like, they were that steel was almost made just for them kind of jobs. So, but keep in mind with D2 steel, it is a little more difficult to hone an edge back on them if you let them go too long. So if you're going to be using this as your primary, maybe consider at least taking something to be able to hone your edges back. At the very least, if you got a leather belt, learn how to strap a knife on your leather belt. That'll help keep the edge a little more sharp for you. So I'll get the wood shavings off my coffee cup. All right, now recommendation when I recommend this. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a really good knife. And like I said, I've had it for about 3 years, or maybe even a little more now. And I've used it in a lot of woodworking situations. Like carving, making feather sticks, just in general, just board, just shaving on sticks and stuff. It's held up very well. This clip is not the strongest clip I've ever had on a knife, but it's not bad. I've never had this thing get jerked out of my pocket or anything like that. It's not quite a deep carry. It's getting close to it. And it's another one of them deals where this clip is not movable. It is where it's at. Now, this is a frame lock. The lockup on it is decent. I'd like to seen it in there a little bit more. You see it's right on that edge there. And I'm only saying it's decent because as it is, I've never had no trouble with it. But I do prefer that to be closer to the middle of the bottom of the blade itself. Like I said, it's held up. I've got no wiggle whatsoever, and this thing is stiff. There's no side to side, up and down play in this blade. And like I said, I've used it quite a bit in the time I've had it, so I can recommend it on. I'm going to lowball it for, I'm just going to say 3 years. It's been closer to 4, but let's just say the 3 years I've had this and I've used it a lot. I highly recommend it because it's held up for me. The edge is held up. I've even done a little bit of food prep with it out on the job sites. I've cut some cheese, some salami, stuff like that with it. Just take a sanitation wipe after I'm done, make sure it's good and clean. No problem. All right, guys, we'll cut this one off here. Appreciate each and every one of you guys for watching, and I'll see you all soon in another one.